Yeah, my dad was supportive. I don't think he ever quite understood what comics were. At some point, he thought my collection was going to be worth a lot of money because I kept telling him it was going to be worth a lot of money. I'd buy the comic buyer's guide. I'm like, I remember going to my parents' bedroom one day. I'm just like, guys, you need to fucking lay down because this is going to knock your socks off. I just tallied up what all my comics are worth, and it's like $5,000.
Yeah.
They're worthless.
Yeah.
But they're just like, oh my God, should we insure these comics? Like, what's going on?
Right.
But, you know. But my dad was always supportive of reading. Like, he knew that, like, if there's anything I wanted to read, he would buy it. Comics were kind of like not quite there. Like, he'd give me allowance for that. But if I wanted a book, he'd buy me a book. He's like, you know, that's important because he didn't really have a support system when he was growing up. And his big thing was he wanted me to go to school. That was it. Like, as long as I went to college, he'd be happy because he didn't go to college. And I found out later, it was, oh my God, this is like at the end of high school. I was doing poorly, very poorly in school. And like, it would always be the same thing. Like, report card would come in, I'd hide it for as long as I could, and then finally my parents would see it, and then they'd sit down at a table like this, and they'd be like, why? You're smart. Why are you doing so poorly? What's going on? And like, you know, they're getting agitated. I'm just like, I don't know. And then one day I did the thing, you know, classic teenage something. I'm like, you want to know why? You don't want to know why? I don't want to be like you. I don't want to be you. Fuck you. And I like I storm out. I don't know where I'm going. I'm walking down the street. I'm like, I don't have a car. I'm just like walking. I'm like, where's my plan now? So I'm walking down the street. I remember my dad kind of slowly pulling up in the family car beside me, rolling down the window. He's like, get in. Where are you going? I'm like, I'm going to walk to Ryan's house. He's like, that's 2 hours away. He's like, get in. I'm like, no. He's like, get in. I'm like, fine. I get in the car and we just start going for a drive. And, you know, he's like, what is this? Why, you know, why are you like so dedicated to not doing well in school and not going to college? He's like, I'm gonna ride a motorbike across the country and, you know, I'm gonna experience life. And I'm like, I don't want to end up like you. I don't want to end up like you know, with your, you know, your wife and your 2 kids and a job that you hate and blah, blah, blah. And you're always stressed and stuff. And my dad was a tough guy and he just pulled the car over. I guess I start crying now thinking about it. But he just like, he pulled over and he just like put his head against the wheel. And he just started crying. And I don't think I'd really seen my dad cry like that before. And I was just like sitting there, I was like, oh my God, what have I done? Like,
Yeah,
you know,
you didn't realize that you actually hit a nerve.
No, and he's crying and he's like, don't you get it? Like, that's why I want you to go to school. I don't want you to be like me. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I didn't graduate high school. And he had to lie to get the job that he got. And he got this job and he rose through the ranks of this company and he ended up being like a VP by the end of like a telecommunications place. But like every day he lived with the worry that someday someone was going to take a look and like,
They figure it
you
out.
didn't, you got to grade 10 and that's it and you're running this company?
Yeah.
And so like, you know, at that moment, like, you know, I just started crying. Like, it's just like this man and this son just like crying in this car. And at that moment I realized I was going to go to art school.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it wasn't quite, you know, higher education, but it was like,
something.
but it was going to be something, you know, I was going to give that a shot.
Yeah.
And, you know, not make him proud or whatever, but like, you know, I kind of learned the lesson that day, you know, from my dad, like, okay, like, figure out a goal and work towards it or else life's going to happen to you. Like, my dad was happy in the sense that, like, he was paid well by the end of his kind of career, but he wasn't doing the thing that gave him, you know, joy. Like, I think he wanted to be an architect, and, like, he never had that. Yeah. And my mom was the same. She worked at, like, a buyer for a steel company, and, you know, friends there and stuff, and you clock out, but there's nothing in there that, you know, I think brought her joy. Right. For them, their joy was each other. And
that's my folks.
Yeah, like they're hopelessly devoted to each other, and you know, they traveled, they spent their money. You know, my dad bought a motorcycle and jokingly called it tuition. Yeah. he spends all the tuition money on it, but like, yeah, I learned there's a couple of ways to live your life, and like one is like, you know, do the work, you know, be satisfied doing the work, but you know, the end result is money, so you can like do the things you want to do, or you could like, you know, go the other path and do a thing that you really are into, and maybe there's a chance of financial stability out of that, but you know, you're satisfied doing the work itself.
My dad, I have fundamental, like early foundational memories of Dad coming home like covered in dirt. from digging ditches.
Yeah.
And he started working at this company, this electrical company, and then by the time he was 40, he owned it.
Wow.
So like
Yeah.
he started working there when he was like 18, and at 40 he owned it, right? And had like a couple hundred employees or whatever.
Yeah.
And I really watched him become successful.
Yeah, work at it.
I just sort of learned, and it's sort of like my dad could never understand, like, what is this like troublemaker streak in you? Like, why do you like not, like you were saying, like why do you not pay attention in school? Like why you know, you got great SAT scores. Why do you have a D your freshman year, average your freshman year of college? Some of it is just like in retrospect, like if you're a creative person and you're in an outlet that is not creative, you just feel bored.
Yeah.
You know, so you start causing trouble, I think.
Yeah, there's that.
To keep yourself occupied.
And it's hard for, like, you know, I mean, both our dads. My dad, you know, your dad was in the ditches. My dad was climbing telephone poles. Right. And, like, you know, in the hot sun. And they're just like, don't they see, like, what the alternative is? Like, you're digging ditches and you're, like, on the pole. On the pole. My dad was an exotic dancer.
Well, my dad was, like, you know, he was always very driven.
Yeah.
Like he was always like, and you know, and I watched him start a small business.
Yeah.
So, and like now I'm a small business owner.
Yeah. It's a weird moment when you realize, like, for me and my dad, like, you know, I've always been lighter and goofier and stuff. My dad's a bit more serious and stuff.
Same.
But at some point you recognize, oh fuck, we're both like, we're the same dude in so many ways. Like we have the same kind of work ethic and like, you know, the anxiety of letting others down.
I have all that stuff, but I'm lazier.
No, you're not lazier. You afford yourself time to pontificate and think about things.
Yes.
Which I think a lot of people don't.
Yes.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Like, you know, it's not like you're just like doing nothing.
Yeah. And when I work, I feel like I work like ultra hard.
Yeah.
Like so hard. I used to work so hard that I couldn't like recover.
Uh-huh.
You know, like I would bleed out.
Yeah.
It's not just going to be a con sketch. It's going to be the best motherfucking con sketch anyone's ever gotten. So that
Yeah, but that's honestly how you get better and how, like, yeah, I get that. Like, I did a thing where, when I used to work at a newspaper and, you know, had many hats at that paper, you know, illustrator, columnist, designer, videos, like everything. And, there was one project where they came to me and they're like, oh, it's Sesame Street's 40th anniversary. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And they're like, so we want you to do like a front page for the section of all of Muppets. I'm like, oh, that'd be cool. But what if I did all the Muppets? And they're like, oh, all right, man, whatever. And I started researching all the Muppets from Sesame Street. I'm like, okay, there's too many.
Yeah.
So I did 101 Muppets. And I drew this thing where it's like the size of a newspaper page, 101 Muppets. Penciled it out, inked it, did the research on all of them, colored it all. I programmed it in Flash so you could so there's bios over each one so you know where they all appeared. I did it over 3 days. And I slept overnight at the paper. I don't think anyone's ever done that before at that paper. And I blew my arm and my hand. So I had to go on short-term disability for 4 weeks.
Jesus Christ, man.
Part of it is because, like, here's another origin story thing. I don't have a pen or something. I'll take this forward. I had this thing where, like, most people draw like this, and I draw like this. Okay. The reason I draw like this is because I started drawing at such an early age. The table was so high, I couldn't see what I was drawing, so I turned it towards me. But the result of that is my hand hurts all the time because of the kind of the grip.
It's a lot of torque.
It's a lot of torque. And so that's kind of why I ended up on short-term disability. Like I couldn't grab a fork. I couldn't hold anything with my hand, and like I thought it was fucked. Like because again, you get the little challenge. You're like, but what if I did it bigger? Yeah. And after that point, I realized, okay, you know, you got to just be smarter. Like you don't have to prove anything to anyone. Like you just have to be a bit smarter.
I'm still learning that I don't have to like.
Well, yeah. It never fully goes away. Like on Sex Criminals, like, you know, Matt will be like, put this in this gag in the background in this porn shop. I'll be like, and I'll add 70 other jokes. Yes. Because like, it's like an automatic thing.
You want
it
to be rereadable.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
You know, like I think you and I both suffer from whatever it is that cartoonists and filmmakers have in common, where they want to like be an auteur. We have just enough of that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's born from the anxiety of letting others down. Like, I don't want to let Matt down on it, and I don't want to let the readers down on it, because I recognize they're paying money for a thing, and like, you want to have the best thing. And I think you should always approach every issue you do as this is going to be my last issue doing this, whether it's the first issue or the 50th issue. You know, I mean, was it like, what's the phrase, like, perfection is the enemy of finished, or something like that. Like, there is a bit of that. Like, working at Marvel, it's like, okay, these books have to get out the door. Yeah. So
it's just really is like a crazy, like, the amount of stuff that you create at the speed you create it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've often said, like, before I ended up doing comics, like, really I only professionally started doing comics when I was 38. You know, I got the Harvey Award for most promising new talent at 38, which is like a joke. But before that, I'd done a variety of art jobs, like whether it be like cartooning and comics, or like oil painting portraits, animation backgrounds, architectural renderings. Like, I've kind of done most things you can do visually with art, and comics is the hardest, 100%, because it requires you to know almost everything there is to know about art and incorporate it onto a page.
Yes.
Like, you have to understand anatomy, clothing, environments, cars, cinematography, painting, color theory, abstraction, not to mention just the actual language of comics itself. You know, I use, like, you know, I'm a digital guy, and I use like 5 programs to make a comic, like, and I've learned all these programs over the years for a variety of other art jobs, but they all kind of come together in comics, and it's 100% the hardest art job.
Yep.
I don't think there's anything else that comes close.
Yeah, and then it's also like, I mean, it becomes a thing where the more into something you get, like the more moves you can add to it, even if you make it smaller.
Yeah.
Like, even if you decide, like, I'm going to pare this down and only use one tool.
Yeah.
If you do one job like that well, then the next one you're like, oh, I figured out a way to make that even crazier.
Yeah.
You know, and then you multiply that by like the story you're telling.
Yeah.
And it just becomes this like whole little world that has its own rules and own problems, and people get lost in it all the time. And I think the benefit that you and I have is that because we write for other people, I don't know about you, but it helps. That actually helps me.
Yeah, for sure. 100%, yeah. I mean, you know, I've been talking to a bunch of artists this weekend, and like artists I've worked with, and it's a nice thing to hear. But they're basically like, you like, they tend to enjoy working with me because I am an artist. I understand how it's supposed to work on a page. Like, very rarely will I get caught up in a thing where I've asked an artist to do something that's actually impossible.
Well, the rule I made for myself with art, writing with somebody else, was if I could have done it better, I should have.
Yeah.
So, like, if I get work back and I'm upset about it, then I just think, like, well, you should have fucking drawn it.
Yeah. So there you go.
Right.
There you go, buddy.
You lazy asshole.
Your whole video series should just be called "You Lazy Asshole," because that's how everyone feels in comics, no matter what.
Well, I don't want to like keep you all day.
Yeah, I gotta get going.
Oh man, can't wait to go sketch.
Are you doing con sketches?
Yeah.